we played Chesterfield in a pre-season friendly while I was at Burnley.
Hmm.
And obviously Sean's on the touchline. And he come up to me after on a Monday or something like that. And he says, right back at Chesterfield, Tendai Doriqua. I went, oh, yeah, I've seen him. He was a young player here, they never. I went through his history. He went, yeah, he says, I'm signing him. I went, right, okay. I went, why? He went, because he played in front of me on Saturday and he was up, down, up, down, up, down, pace, quick, tackle, got forward, got crosses in. He said, I just think he's perfect for us.
Hmm.
Sometimes managers, you just have to go with it, don't you?
Hello, Happy New Year. I'm Dave, welcome to Legends of the Spire. I'm recording this the day after the trip to Watford, which was obviously great fun, and on the back of that Solihull comeback win as well, 2024 kicking off well. Hopefully it's going to be a big year for us. I am back with another Legends of the Spire interview. This is number 80, so amazing that I'm still doing these after quite a few years now, but I am planning to get to 100. So hopefully we can do it this year. We'll see what happens. They are getting a little bit more infrequent, probably once a month rather than once a week. That's just the availability of people to talk to. Life is going full throttle again in those years after COVID, so a little bit harder sometimes to find dates that match. But I've got a few more lined up, so hopefully more on the horizon. Today I had a chat with Glyn Chamberlain. Now Glyn was Chesterfield born and bred, part of the Chesterfield squad in the late 1970s, early 1980s under Arthur Cox. A defender by trade, also did a little bit in midfield as well. And after his spell at Chesterfield, went on to have a career at places like Halifax, and then a really long non-league career too. He ended up doing bits of coaching, management at places like Newcastle Town and Congleton, and then actually ended up as a scout. He had a long time at Fulham, but has also worked at clubs like Cardiff and Blackburn, and is now at Derby. So has worked with managers like Neil Warnock, Jean Tagana when he was at Fulham, and now with Paul Warne at Derby, where he's working alongside Jonathan Howard, another former Spirite legend. He had a chat with me about his Chesterfield career and then subsequent career after leaving Chesterfield. And then we had a long chat about scouting, just because I find it all really interesting. So I was able to pick his brains about how things have changed over the years and how you go about being a scout in the game. As always, I am on YouTube and podcast platforms, so just search for Legends of the Spire. On there, you'll find us, and Spire Legends as well. There'll also be a link in the information, which has got all the links to the various places that you can listen to. And there's also the new fanzine out. I'm working on a few little additions and things like that as well, so keep your eye out for them. And thank you if you have supported me either just with watching or listening to any of the podcasts. If you've ever said nice words or anything like that, thank you so much, I do appreciate it. And anyone that buys the fanzine or has ever bought any artwork or bobble hats or scarves or things like that, thanks very much. It's just really fun to do. At the Christmas we managed to raise some money for both Save the Children, and there's also a donation to the community trust going through for the calendar sales that we've had over Christmas too. But I'll stop waffling on. We are back with another interview. This is Legends of the Spire number 80 with Glyn Chamberlain. Here we go. I was having a look. I always have a little scour at like forums and things like that before I start, just to see where your name's cropped up over the years and stuff. And I saw that there was an article from a few years ago where people had tried to put together their Chesterfield 11 of people born from Chesterfield,
Right.
that played for Chesterfield, which you appeared in. So you obviously grew up in the town, didn't you?
Yeah, I was born and bred in Chesterfield. I remember living as a young boy. I remember living down in Tapton Terrace, which is just down by the railway station.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can remember, obviously it's going back a long time. I can remember my dad got a job at Staveley Works,
Mm-hmm.
so we moved to Hollingwood, which was my home right the way through to leaving school.
Yeah. So
Um,
so when did you start kind of taking an interest in football? And was it Chesterfield or was it another team?
no, it was Chesterfield. To be fair, there was no history of football in the family, apart from local football type thing. There was no history of professional football. But I can remember going to Saltergate, or it was called the Rec at that time, short for the recreation ground. I can remember going to Chesterfield fairly early with what was called my uncle, who lived next door to us in Tapton Terrace. They were Chesterfield supporters, and I can remember going, and I would imagine it's like anything else. You just got that little bug at probably 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old. So I can remember going quite early. Can't remember too much about the games, but I can remember the stadium.
Hmm.
Um, and my first real memories of is when we won the title in what, 68, 69.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd have been about
70.
what about 10 or something like that then, would you have
Yeah,
something
something
like that?
like that. Because I can remember that team, and I still speak to some of them today. Like,
Hmm.
I can remember the team: David Pugh, Kevin Randall, Tom Fennerty, Albert Holmes, John Archer, Alan Stevenson, Roy Hickton. Um, that's when it sort of that's when you sort of got into it, really. And
Hmm.
I can remember we used to go to most games at home, and we actually went to quite a few away games that season. We used to have a special train for places like Barnsley and Rotherham and Sheffield, the Sheffield club, or Doncaster, and they used to take a good following of supporters. So it was always for a 10-year-old, it was a fantastic time to be
Yeah, yeah.
involved in a team that were that good, but were top of league.
Hmm. Where did you like stand when you went to
I
matches?
think, I think we're in posh seats in Cross Street End. Yeah, season ticket. I think we had a season ticket if I remember right.
Yeah,
Um, I have occasionally stood on what was the far side called? What was the far
yeah.
side called? The
Cross
Crompton Street.
Cross Street.
Cross Street was it?
Yeah, Compton Street alongside the opposite the
Yeah,
main stand, and
I
then
remember
Cross Street.
across the dugouts. I
Mm,
remember standing up there a few times, and it were the days where you could walk round.
yeah,
If we kicked one half one way, we could walk round and watch from back of the goal. Then we could walk round back to Cotton, past the opposing fans, and of course it can't be done nowadays, can it? I can remember doing that, and of course when you're 10 year old and you've probably got 5 or 6 thousand in, and more sometimes, it's sent an enormous crowd.
yeah. I've said it plenty of times before, but I also always remember talking to Bob Wilson, and he was talking about watching Gordon Banks in net for Chesterfield, and he'd
Yeah,
stand behind Gordon Banks watching him, and then at half time, obviously move
go
around to
around
the
the
other
other
side and
end.
watch him again.
Yeah,
Way
yeah,
to do
it
it,
was
isn't it?
fantastic.
Yeah.
I can remember one game when we played. I can't remember what division we played. Aston Villa, and they absolutely flooded the stadium and like took all over both ends, long side, and everything. And you had to walk past them if you wanted to change ends at half time, and like your life were in your hands. It really were. No,
Yeah. So you ended up at were you a youth player at Burnley then?
yeah,
How did
I
that all
was.
happen?
How did it come about? There was an ex-player at Chesterfield who was probably our record appearance holder called Dave Blakey,
Yeah.
and he was the chief scout at Burnley. So when I was 12, I went to I used to train in Chesterfield at Chesterfield Tube Works with some local boys and local players. And I played for Chesterfield boys, obviously, and I played for Derbyshire boys. And me and a lad called Terry Pashley, who's also from Chesterfield, we we signed schoolboy forms at 12 years old, which allowed you to go up to Burnley in the school holidays to train.
Mhm.
At 12 years old, you sort of monitored, and at 15, I got an apprenticeship. So I actually left Staveley Middlecross School a month before I was 15,
Wow.
and went up to Burnley to start my apprenticeship,
Mm.
which was in the pre-season. Didn't see a football for a month. I painted everything claret blue, cleaned up, swept up, blew footballs up, polished boots, swept the stands, tidied up, maintenance man, lined the pitches, cut the grass. We did everything for a month by train. And then when pre-season started, we were all thrown in it together, which was, we were in the second division then, the old second division championship now.
Mhm.
But they won promotion that first season to get back into the first division. With obviously a squad of players like Leighton James, Dave Thomas, Martin Dobson, people like that. Probably some people who they won't remember on here now, but
Mm.
good players, and it was a good football club. Burnley still is to this day, good football club.
Yeah, yeah. There's quite a lot of connections, isn't there? Even I mean,
Over the
up to a
years,
few years ago, there's been loads of ex
yeah,
Chesterfield players, isn't there, at Burnley?
that's right. Well, when I was there as a young player, we had a good pal of mine, Ronnie Welsh, was a pro up there. Ian Brennan, who came from Tapton, was a player up there. Me and Terry Pashley went together. So there
Mm.
was there was four of us. Alan Stevenson, who we actually bought from Chesterfield as a goalkeeper,
Yeah.
so we could fill a car going back and forward to come home at weekends. There was no problem with that. No problem.
Was that good fun then? If
Oh
you're a young teenager,
yeah, yeah. I've always said, to be fair, whatever I've done and whatever clubs I've been at, 15 to 17 when you're an apprentice on £6.40 a week, I think it was, and £6 for your landlady who you lived in digs with, was fantastic. Like, because we would train all week, we'd play in the A team or the B team on a Saturday morning, see what were happening in the afternoon where some of the senior players were, get a lift home to Chesterfield, be home for 6:30, spend the weekend at home and back to Burnley again on Monday morning at 8:30, 8:45. So we had the best of both worlds. After I'd been in the B team for about a season, 3/4 of a season, I went into the old Central League team.
Mm-hmm.
What used to happen then is the first team centre halves got injured, so the reserve team centre half stepped up, and the A team centre half stepped up, or right back, or whatever it be, stepped up to play in the Central League.
Mm-hmm.
So, within a year and a bit, I'd gone from a young kid, schoolboy, like, to playing Liverpool reserves at Anfield and Man United reserves at Old Trafford and Everton reserves at Goodison. All right, there's only 2,500, 3,000 people there, but the experience of playing against some senior pros and playing at them stadiums were absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few players before talking about how competitive that league was and how you'd get these big names just kind of appearing in the
well,
teams.
different to today, because if you weren't in the first team in them days, you played in the reserves in the Central League team. So there was no like squad rotation or we'll hold you back for 2 weeks while you have a breather. You played. So when I played against Wolves at Wolves, there was Derek Dugan and Alec Lindsay, Ray Kennedy at Liverpool, Peter Lorimer at Leeds, and you were playing against these types of players. Fantastic learning experience. Fantastic.
Did you have to kind of stop yourself from staring at them on the pitch or anything like that?
Yeah, you did. You'd seen them on Match of the Day 2 weeks earlier when you were watching Match of the Day on a Saturday night, and then suddenly you're playing at Molineux or Everton or whatever it be, Sunderland, Newcastle, Coventry, all big clubs, all big stadiums.
Yeah.
All right, it would have been better to play there in a proper game in front of a full house, but you still. I think the biggest crowd we had when I was a Burnley player, we were away at Manchester United one Wednesday night, and they were collecting vouchers for European games. So I think that's like 10,000 in Old Trafford for a Central League game. So great experience. Great experience.
And then you ended up coming back to Chesterfield then. So were you about 18 then when you?
I think I were, yeah. Since you rang me to do this interview, I've been trying to jot some dates down.
This is
I'm not great at remembering
77. I was wondering, was that because obviously that was when we had the change, didn't we, from Joe Shaw to Arthur Cox? So who was there when you came in?
It was Arthur, to be fair. I think Arthur had only been there about a month or 2 months or something like that. And I was at training one morning at Burnley, and the assistant manager was a great fella called Joe Brown. Come up to me and said, "You're going to Chesterfield for a month, right? On loan." All right. There was no like negotiations or anything like that. If the manager said you were going, you went. Full stop. And I thought, that's all right. Good club. I'm going home. I'll enjoy that. It wasn't actually a loan. What later on in life, when you put two and two together, you realise that your Burnley career is not going as far as you thought it was going to go, and they're trying to help you get fixed up for a career in somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah.
So I went down to Chesterfield, and obviously I drove to the old stadium on the Thursday morning and met Arthur and Frank Barlow for the first time. And we went to a place in Eckington called Pitt Street, where we used to train at, which was, even in them days, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. It was a prefab building with one pitch, which were 4-5 inches of mud. Real poor facilities, but you just had to get on with it, didn't you? And I'd been watching Chesterfield in my spare. In the weekends I weren't playing, all weekdays at home, I'd been watching Chesterfield. I'd still go and watch Chesterfield at home. So suddenly I'm playing and tackling Rod Fern and Malcolm Darling and Andy Kowalski and John Cotton and Sean O'Neill. So, all right, this is all right, isn't it? I quite enjoyed it. It was good. It was the first part of my Chesterfield time was a good. As it panned out, I needed to leave to play first team football somewhere else. But it's certainly a good football club. Certainly a good football club.
And quite a few people have talked about how Arthur Cox was kind of a bit of a tracksuit manager before you had tracksuit managers.
Yeah,
I think a few people have said before. How did you find him?
I'd come from a football club where there were the best facilities. The training ground at the time was the best facilities, and then we go to somewhere where the facilities are next to now, and the kit was ancient, and you had to take it on to wash it, which It was strange to me because everything was done in a laundry at Burnley. So you had to grasp what level we were at. Arthur was fine with me, to be fair. The first message I got off Jimmy Adamson at Burnley when he said I was going on loan, he says Arthur Cox was at Chesterfield and he saw you play at Huddersfield in the reserves the other week. So that was the bit of a link, along with Dave Blakey. Arthur was like, I think he thought he was James Cagney, if you can remember him. Right? He was straight. He was uh, infectious. He was mad on fitness. You had to be fit. You had to be able to run. He was enthusiastic. It was I think that was his first sole manager's job. So obviously he made some mistakes, which he later on in life he's gone on to great. He went on to good things, on to better things. I find him okay, unless I wasn't in the team.
Yeah, and I've heard about the legendary runs over Kerber and
oh yeah,
and things like that. Where were you in terms of the gang? Were you nearer the front or nearer the back?
Nearer the back, nearer the back. First time I did it, we went up Kerber. There was a foot of snow, and it was so cold. The sheep had got scarves on. It was so cold up there on a Friday morning, and I can remember I was running, and I was with Eric Winstanley, a big centre half. He used to play, signing from Barnsley, and like I says, Eric, it's Friday tomorrow. We're playing tomorrow. Why are we? Your ankles and your knees were at risk of being knocked out of place, falling over stones, falling in snow and everything. He went, he does it every Friday. We do it every Friday. And like you had a certain time, I think, to run it in 17, 20 minutes or something like that. It was always difficult for me to get in it. I know that because I wasn't a great runner.
I've heard that. I think it was Steve Ogrizovic who you
Oggy, yeah.
Same time with. He was talking. I wouldn't say in fond terms about running those
no,
doing
no.
those runs, but yeah.
When you look back now and think how training's moved on in terms of preparation and analysis and that, it was archaic, but it was what we did at the time.
Well, yeah, I suppose. I mean, that was another thing Oggy was talking about was getting balls pelted at him on the halfway line at the Rec, and the rest of the squad running wraps around the pitch at the same time.
Yeah. It were. And obviously there were some outstanding athletes in the team. I mean, Phil Tingey could run for his country. Ernie was absolutely unbelievable as a runner. Kowalski could run. So there was always somebody who were like 15 to 20 minutes in front of you.
Yeah.
There was always someone who was behind you, but there was a lot in front of you.
Was it Andy Kowalski that was talking about how Ernie Moss was always a little bit behind him? He always used to go, used to give a little cough, just as much to say I'm right behind you.
I'm here. I'm right behind you. Yeah. Here's
Walker, who's given Chesterfield good service this afternoon, and a miscue that lets in Moss, and that's one nearer the record.
So you made your debut then against Portsmouth, I think it was.
Yeah, February. That's right. I'd been at the club about 10 days, I think, and I think the Saturday before that game, I was in the squad but watching the game, and a guy called Len Badger who played right back broke his leg. I think it was Preston at home, I think, if I remember right. Len Badger was a hell of a player and a hell of a person, and he broke his leg. I think Len be about 32, 33, something like that. So on the Monday or the Tuesday, Arthur called me in and he just went, "Are you ready?" And I went, "Well, yeah, I think so." Right, okay. And he didn't say anything. That were it then. I didn't know anything else until I got to the ground at Saturday at 1:30, what time it were, and that. And he named me in the team. And I always think your debut is quite easy because you're pumped up for it. So I thought I was all right in the game. I've got some newspaper clippings. People said you did okay and you were all right and a good prospect, usual thing. And I stayed in at right back for a couple more games till we went to Swindon, and I got absolutely tortured by a winger called David Moss, who actually is chief scout of Luton Town now. So when I sit next to him in stadiums up and down the country, I'll generally say to him, "This is the closest I ever got to you, mate, because you were so quick it run through." So I come out of the team and I flirted in and out as a midfield player, which I'd not done before. It was Arthur's idea to play me in midfield. And we had a few good results and a few runs here and there and wins. And then we came into that era where we spent quite a lot of money. on people like Phil Bonnyman and Danny, John Stirk, Bill Green, John Ridley. So the team was strengthened, and I couldn't get anywhere near it.
Mm.
Couldn't get anywhere near it.
Yeah. So, what kind of describe yourself as a player then? Of the years, how did it start, and then how did it change? Because I was looking at the list of lineups and things that we have, and I noticed that your number changed quite a lot, which suggested you probably moved around position a bit.
Well, yeah, I when I was a young'un at Burnley, I actually went as a midfield player, but they turned me into a right back, left back, or even though I was only 5'9", 5'10", centre back, believe it or not. So I played all my Central League stuff and youth team stuff as a back four player, really. It's only when I came to Chesterfield that Arthur pulled me in one day, saying, "I'm going to play you in midfield," and I actually played in midfield with Billy Dearden. Me and Billy Dearden played as a central two in midfield. I didn't particularly think that was for me, actually, but if that's what the manager wanted, that's what you did in them days. There was no real negotiation or discussions about it. If somebody said you're playing number 2, number 8, number 10, you played it.
Yeah.
End of. So I got transformed at Chesterfield into a midfield player. When I went to Halifax, I played in midfield for about 7 or 8 games, but went straight back to right back. So I've basically played right back, left back, centre back throughout my career, really, all in non-league. Describe myself as a player: I could pass it, I could win it, I could head it. I never had any pace. I always make a joke that my running let me down. First of all, I couldn't run quickly, and secondly, I couldn't run far. So it wasn't a great combination, that was it? But playing was all right.
Yeah, brilliant. And which players kind of around that squad then over that time were the ones that you were kind of good mates with or had a good relationship with on and off the pitch?
It was a good squad, to be fair. It's not that we had 2 mates here and there. I can remember, Badger was a phenomenal player at Sheffield United in England. Rodney Fern was a player, wasn't he, at Chesterfield, who'd done things higher up. Malcolm Darling was a good player. Andy Kowalski was a good player. Kenny Burton, left back. Sean O'Neill, how many 100 games for Chesterfield, was a good player. Oggy played in goals. Phil Tingey was a good goalkeeper. So we had a tight-knit squad, and there were good characters. More than anything, they were good players, but more than anything, good characters, to be fair.
Yeah. You need a good atmosphere amongst the squad, don't you? So you can.
If you don't have it, you're not successful. If you don't have it, you're not successful. It doesn't matter what level you're at. The further I've gone down in the line in coaching and dressing rooms and things like that, the dressing rooms that Warnock's had and Sean Dyche and that, it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah. And from speaking to players, a lot of the time it's the first thing they mention. If you talk about successful periods at a club, it's the dressing room was really good.
Good dressing rooms, yeah. It doesn't sound a lot, but it is.
Yeah. I suppose it's like anyone that works in any other industry elsewhere, isn't it? If you had a good squad of people that you're working with, then you could do anything. So I noticed it was like your second season with us. So in that first season, I think we finished about 18th, something like that. So it was, and then the second season, you actually played. We finished 9th. You had quite a run of games, didn't you, at that second season?
Looking back, I think
15 games in a row, something like that.
Like that, yeah. But what used to frustrate me is when everybody were fit again, I was the first one out of the team. Right, so that used to be my beef with Arthur, to be fair, and he used to have to try and placate me at some point, and Frank did to a certain extent as well. I just wanted to be in the. Obviously, I'm a local lad as well, and you're a professional, so you want to be playing, don't you? But after that second season, I should say, is that the season when we came into money or when we spent money?
Yes, it was like the 70...
thereabouts.
Yeah, 77, 78 season, wasn't it? That's when a lot of them... That's when Bonnyman and...
when a lot of money got pumped in. I mean, we never... While I'd been a Chesterfield fan, I don't think we'd ever spent any more than like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 or something like that. Then suddenly we got 100 here and 40 here and 40 more somewhere else, and that we spent quite a lot of money, didn't we?
Yeah.
And both good players, there was no doubt about it. They were good players and good characters, like we've spoken of. And that's what took them onto that run, really, what nearly got us up.
Yeah. I was looking at that run of games that you played in. Like I say, it was about 14, 15 games, I think. And there was a few games around them, like there was a 2-2 draw at Hillsborough, and there was kind of things like that happening at the time. Which kind of games stood out for you as ones that you enjoyed?
Obviously my debut stood out. I can remember that as plain as anything, and I can remember the game. I can remember the day. I can remember going down to the Royal Hospital after the game with 2 stitches in the back of my head with Chris Kamara, who played for Portsmouth on that day. We both got a couple of stitches in the back of our heads. The games when I had a bit of a run, I remember us beating Oxford at home, I think 3-0, which was a good game. I remember the 2-2 with Sheffield Wednesday at home, because the referee were absolutely terrified of the Sheffield people coming on the pitch, because I think we'd gone 2-0 up and they pulled it back to 2-2, and he were worried to death they were going to make it 3-2 and there'd been a pitch invasion. I remember the Wednesday game, winning away at Bradford City, I think, in one game when I played in. Shrewsbury away, when we had a little bit of a battle with a lad called Sammy Irvine. I can remember bits and bobs of them. I can't remember them start to finish, obviously, but I can remember, if we got results here and there.
Did you quite like the battles on the pitch then?
Yeah, I did actually. I did. I like the physical side of it, because I had to do that because of my lack of pace or my lack of being able to run. So I always felt as if I could compete and could hold my own in duels type thing. Yeah.
And you mentioned kind of at that time then there was kind of money coming in, and they were started going out and getting these bigger name players and things like that. Did that change the dressing room or anything like that at the time, or?
No, not really. I wouldn't say it would, because certain players left, because obviously players come in, players have to leave. It was always a good dressing room when I was there. As I say, from my own frustration part of it is that I weren't in the team often enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter who you sign, or it doesn't matter who comes in, you want to be playing, don't you? As an individual, you want to be playing. So I got left behind a wee bit, to be fair, for quite a lengthy spell. I'd had 4 or 5 offers of moving, but Arthur would never let me go, because he said, you're part of the squad and you're a squad player and there's always a contract here for you while I'm here and that sort of thing, which is fine, but I wanted to play. Yeah. So, when it came to the end of the contract at the time, I had an offer off Hull City, York City, where Kev was assistant manager, Kev Ramrell was assistant manager, Lincoln with Colin Murphy, and he ended up at Halifax.
On the hour, Colin Tart scored his second goal of the night with a right foot shot there from the edge of the box, 3-3. But Charlton got their noses in front again through Robinson at 4-3. Chesterfield then equalised for the 3rd time in the evening with a header there by Walker. But the final word was with Charlton. There was a little bit of a doubt about whether their 5th goal was offside, but you'll see here as the ball comes forward, the referee on the right-hand side of the picture is well placed, rules no offside, Peacock goes through to score and round off a truly amazing night.
Arthur Cox had gone, hadn't he, in like 79-80 season, and then Frank Barlow had taken over for a period when you were at the club. So was it that then when it came to kind of moving clubs, was it, like you say, you had a bit of choice of places to go? What made Halifax kind of stand out?
Excuse me. Well, in them days, you used to get notified by letter from the board of directors whether they were going to give you another contract or not. So actually, let's say on the 30th of the last month of the season, you waited for an envelope to drop through the front door to tell you were going to get reinstated or whether you got a free transfer. Well, obviously, Frank had tipped me off to say that, you won't be getting your contract renewed. Fine. So then you had to start the process of trying to find a club yourself. There's no football agents or anything like that. So I went to Hull to meet Mike Smith, and they went into administration, so they couldn't sign any players. I went to meet Barry Lyons and Kev at York. I went to meet Colin Murphy at Lincoln. Well, the first club that put a contract in front of me was Mickey Bullock at Halifax Town. Mm-hmm. Now, we're always in bottom 4. We're always in that bottom 6 in the 4th division. But again, fantastic dressing room full of lads. Really enjoyed it. It was just that the fact that every other month they were going to be put up for sale because they couldn't afford to pay wages or lack of crowds, and they were more at the Speedway than what they were at the football. So it was tough financially. But I got what I wanted because I played the first 35 games straight off in a row before I broke some bones in my foot at Bradford City one afternoon, and that knocked the season off for me. I missed the last 11 fixtures. And at the time, I was married, living in Chesterfield. We'd got our Richard, my first lad. They were always up for sale, Halifax, and it was like, what do we do here, And I had an offer off Kettering to go in the conference, which was the first year the conference was formed. So I accepted that, to be fair. I accepted that. What made me choose Halifax? If I'm honest, they were the only one who put a contract in front of me straight away. The other three were talking about it, but Halifax put a deal in front of me. So you have to look after yourself and your family, and you have to sign.
Yeah, and I've spoken to loads of players where they talk about how, priorities kind of change as you get older. You get a family, and you start to, you do have to start thinking about where you're going and actually having a contract, don't you, and having a wage.
Of course you do. Of course you do, because that's what puts food on the table and pays for the roof over your head.
Yeah.
But I again, you can look at Halifax Town. It was a small club in the Football League, but we travelled everywhere first class. We had club suits. It was a good squad of players. It was a good dressing room. I made some great friends that I'm still in touch with today. Bobby Davison, people like that, Stephen Wood. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
On towards Ward, and it'll be turned back into the middle, and Graham's shot has gone in. Halifax take the lead. The scorer, Tommy Graham.
So going into the conference then, what was it like back in those days, kind of as they were just starting up that conference setup?
It was a real eye-opener, the conference, when I first joined. I think the conference was formed basically of 10 clubs from Southern Prem and 10 clubs from Northern Prem. They were all big football clubs, good football clubs. Altrincham were a powerful outfit at the time. Wealdstone, Enfield, people like that. So there's a hell of a lot of travelling in it, to be fair. It was still a full-time league. It was a full-time league, and there were some good players in it. When I first went to Kettering, it was from a manager who was actually born in, I think he come from Barbara, I like called Jim Condy. Anyway, he soon got the site. And we brought Don Masson in, the Notts County Scotland player. And he brought David Needham in with him, Forest in England, and he brought Eddie Kelly with him and Arthur Mann. So we had some unbelievably experienced players, professional players to play with. And we were getting gates of 2,500, 3,500 people at Kettering versus Boston, Kettering versus Scarborough, Kettering. We were getting good crowds. So again, first season, I think I did 3 seasons at Kettering. I think I enjoyed every one of them. That were a real good experience, to be fair.
There's some good clubs, isn't there, in kind of non-league levels? I think it's been a real eye-opener for us as fans over the last 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not all been good fun. It's quite good fun now, but looking back at it, you kind of get to learn a lot more about different clubs and things like that, and have a lot more respect for the
different how they operate. Yeah, I mean, there's some clubs, a pal of mine's down here at Altrincham, Phil Parkinson. What a fantastic job Parky's done at Altrincham.
Yeah,
fantastic. On far less resources than the majority in that league. So there's always people who punch above the weight and doing well and gaining success. But I'll tell you, it was a difficult league to play in and compete in. And even now, I know we're doing well and we're top. It's a bloody difficult league to get out of.
Not half. It's an absolute nightmare to get out.
Let's hope we crack it this season.
Yeah, do you think it'll ever change in that kind of to like a 3 up, 3 down or something like that? Are everyone always going to protect themselves a little bit in League Two?
I think they were allowed to protect themselves. I think there's more pressure coming now from owners in the conference who are wealthy people wanting to push their clubs forward. And you've seen how Wrexham's gone and you've seen how Notts County's gone. There's always clubs that's come out of the conference, gone into the Football League and gone up again. So it shows you the strength of the clubs that's in that division, to be fair.
Yeah. I've always thought it's a shame that clubs like Chesterfield and Notts County and Wrexham have to kind of really show a bit of financial clout to get out of there, and it means that clubs like a Bromley or a Boreham Wood or something like that don't actually just have that chance to build a good squad and then get into the Football League.
Some sort of position. But then again, you look at the 2 managers of them 2 clubs who have had some dealings with over loan players. What a good job them 2 have done.
Yeah.
It's a hell of an achievement to do what Bromley's doing and Boreham Wood have done, and people like that.
Yeah, not half. Yeah.
But getting out is definitely it's tough, isn't it? It's tough. I went to the playoff final at Wembley, sat with John Howard, who works with me at Derby.
Yeah.
And we were sat there and we were jumping up and down when we were in front, and then deflated when we went equalised, and deflated even more when we got beaten. Like, we just want the team to do well again, and the club to get back in the Football League.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. So you ended up having playing for kind of quite a few teams after Kettering. Was it like teams like Buxton, Hyde, Macclesfield, teams like that?
Yeah, I lived in Stoke-on-Trent, to be fair, and I signed for Buxton, which is 25 mile over the hill, isn't it? And there's a theme running through this because the manager got the sack after about 6 games, and the chairman come to me and he said, "Would you run the team for?" I think I was 27. I think he said, "Would you run the team for the time being until we get someone in?" He says, "You're the most experienced player here." Yeah, okay, I'll try. We'll give it a go. And they were in the Northern Premier League. Well, there's only one Northern Premier League. There's about 5 or 6 regional Northern Premier Leagues now, but there's one Northern Premier League. And again, Witton Albion. I think Neil was at Gainsborough. Neil Warnock was managing Gainsborough. It might have been Burton at the time. I'm not sure. So there were some good clubs, good teams, good players, good managers in that division. So I did it for 3 games. I think we won 2 and drawn 1. And he come up to me and he said, "We'd like to offer you the job." Right, okay. So I accepted it because I thought, well, it's gone all right, 3 or 4 games. I knew the lads. I'd got a few contacts for bringing 1 or 2 players in. I accepted the job, and boy, oh boy, was that a tough job, and downhill from there on. But it was a great learning curve because I had to deal with a board of directors. I had to pick a team. I had to balance the budgets. I had to coach. I had to play. I had to sign some players, move some players on. Fantastic experience, but it was a tough gig. That was a tough gig.
Gig. It sounds like in terms of your transition then from being a footballer into kind of coaching, scouting, management, everything else was just kind of throw you into it.
You just got
learn on your feet.
Yeah, get on with it. Yeah, you can do as many courses as you want, but until you've been at coalface, you can't learn, can you? Can't learn.
Yeah. And all those connections, I guess, that you'll have made in all of those clubs and earlier on in your career, I suppose as you've gone on through the years, do those kind of come up again every now and then, like people like Neil Warnock and people like that, I suppose?
Yeah, when I went for an interview with the Cardiff job, I went to meet Neil in Birmingham the night before they played Aston Villa. It was about 6 or 7 weeks after he'd got the job at Cardiff. And I went to see him, and he's in his hotel suite room upstairs, and I knocked on the door and I went, come in, son. We sat down. We talked about every Chesterfield player who's played for Chesterfield. We talked about all non-league players that we'd managed, coached and played against. And after about an hour, he went, "Well, do you want the job or not then?" And we'd not talked about the job or finances or anything like that. But he's one of them. Neil's one of them that if you have an hour in his company, you just want to get back outside, put your boots on and go and play football.
Yeah.
He's that enthusiastic and infectious. And I think I had 33 months at Cardiff. I left about 6 weeks after he left. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I can imagine. You can just hear from him talking about the game, it just makes you want
Yeah. So passionate, so knowledgeable, so passionate, so ruthless. Everything about him, he was brilliant with me.
Yeah. So you've obviously had a long you had quite a few clubs as kind of bit of management. Newcastle Town, was it?
Yeah, that was
94 to 99. Congleton, like you mentioned, a bit of Macclesfield as well.
Yeah, that was a great experience, Newcastle, because I'd finished playing there. I was about 36, I think. And I started helping out coaching, and then they offered me the job. And we had some good players from in and around the Potteries, and we had a bit of success. We got to the first round of the FA Cup against Notts County, which we played at the old Stoke Stadium, Victoria Ground, before the new one was built. And we played there on a Sunday dinner. I think we got about 5,000 in, to be fair. And when I look back at some of the players who played for Notts County, Chris Wilder was captain of Notts County. Steve Finan, who went on to Liverpool, was playing on right back. Colin Murphy was manager. So they were a proper football club. And we had some good times in non-league football. I really enjoyed non-league football. I really enjoyed it, to be fair. People might have poo-pooed it or turned their nose up at it, but I loved it. Hyde United was a good club until we had AstroTurf. We had an AstroTurf pitch, which put me completely off football altogether. Because it was the first AstroTurf, the hard stuff, which was just like a carpet laid on concrete. That was horrendous. Everybody thought it was brilliant, but I thought it was bloody awful and left. I went to manage Newcastle. Hyde for a short spell. Congleton, which was just down the road from where I lived in Stoke, was good. And then I was offered a full-time job at Fulham, so I had to leave the Congleton job. But I really enjoyed my non-league football. Make some great contacts, managers and coaches who, I still speak to some of them today. One or two ring you up and say, well, there's a left winger at such and such a club, there's a right back at such and such a club. Have you seen him? And it's invaluable, that knowledge.
Scouting then. When did that kind of start? Can you remember the first time someone said?
Yeah, I can. I fell into it actually, and it was a strange way. I'd lost that job at Newcastle Town. I got the sack there, and I got a message off the secretary saying Arthur Cox has rang you. Right, give him a ring. So he left me his number. So I rang him, and he said, "What are you going to do?" I says, and the reason Arthur rang me, to be fair, is because while I was manager of Newcastle, Stoke City drew Newcastle United in one of the cups, Carabao Cup or Carling Cup, wherever they called it that day. So Arthur and Kevin brought Newcastle United to train on Newcastle Town's pitch on the morning of the game. And we were supposed to keep it quiet. There was about 2,000 people turned up because Ginola was on the pitch, Florian Albert was on the pitch, Rob Lee, Les Ferdinand, all that terrific Newcastle team, what Kevin had, were training on a non-league pitch in Stoke-on-Trent before they played at night. So I spoke to Arthur and he said, "What are you going to do?" I says, "Well, I'll just have to wait while an opportunity crops up somewhere, either in Cheshire, Staffordshire, Derbyshire, somewhere where I can get back in." So he says to me, "Do you want to watch a few games for us?" He was at Fulham with Kevin. I went, "What do you mean, watch a few games?" He says, blunt as you were, he says, "Watch a few games like I've just said." So I says, "Yeah, but what do you want me to do?" He says, "Watch a few games like I've said." Right, so he says, I'll put you some tickets on at games. You go to games, and you tell me what you see. I'll tell you some players to look at or which teams to look at, things like that. So after about 6 weeks, Arthur's idea of a couple of games a week was probably 7 in a week. Right, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, maybe one on a Sunday, Monday night, Tuesdays. So he would ring me up and say, "Can you go to Bolton tonight?" "Yeah." "Can you go to Leeds tomorrow?" "Yeah." "Can you go to Liverpool reserves Thursday night?" "Yeah." "Can you go here on Friday?" "Yeah." So I fell into it really, but began to think I enjoyed it. I would have still rather managed or coached, don't get me wrong, but I quite enjoyed it. You went to good stadiums, saw good games, and then he used to ring me in the morning and say, "How did such and such play?" or "What was he like?" or "What did he do?" That type of thing. And I just have conversations with him. They actually bought me a fax phone to put in the house so I could fax the reports off and little bits of notes and team sheets and things like that. So I quite enjoyed it actually. And then I can't remember how long I'd been doing it on a part-time role, but Arthur and Kevin left to go to England. And they appointed a new chief scout from within, a lad called John Marshall, who I got on fantastically well, was a great fella. He got the chief scout's job full time, and he rang me up and he said, "I'll meet you tonight at Walsall." And he offered me a full-time job at Fulham, obviously. We'd gone up into I think we'd gone up into Championship from League One with Kevin, so we were in the Championship. So obviously I couldn't turn it down. It was a fantastic opportunity to go full-time at a club like that. I had 6 years there altogether. After Kevin was Paul Bracewell for a short spell. And then it was Jean Tigana from France, the French international.
Yeah, and there's lots of French players that Steve Malbranc and people like that.
Yeah, Sahar. And then I walked into training ground one morning when I'd gone down for 2 or 3 days, and Edwin van der Sar rolled in. Edwin van der Sar turned up, and you're watching him ping balls about on pitch. I actually thought he was a midfield player. His feet were that good. I actually thought he could have been a midfield player. So I had 6 good years at Fulham. I enjoyed it. I went from watching younger players to start with, to doing team assessments for the first team, to looking at players who they were going to sign, to the point that I would go out to Seville on a Tuesday night to watch a game, or out to Denmark or into Belgium and Holland in the week for 2 or 3 games in a week. So unbelievable opportunity, fantastic experience, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So how did you kind of start with it all? How did you know what you'd be reporting on and what notes to write and stuff like that? Was it just kind of
I didn't.
Just
I
go
learned
with
it as
it.
I went on. Arthur used to say to me, "Go and look at this player and tell me how he does. Go and look at these two players and tell me how they do." So I sort of had to formulate what you needed to say and speak about. I mean, I look back now at some of the things I said at first. I think, oh my God, how did they keep you on? You know what I mean? Because obviously it's moved on now, 25 years. Everything's technology and laptop and scouting platforms and things like that. But I got through it. I enjoyed it. I couldn't do enough. If they didn't give me a game on a Tuesday, something, I'd ring them up and ask for one. You know, you just wanted to go to work.
Yeah.
So after Fulham, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, did you get used to people? Did you have the club coat on and things like that at the time? Do you get
I never
people
do that.
looking
I
over?
never did that 25 years ago, and I don't do it now. I don't know it now. But what I did before is you'll go in a little room for a cup of tea before a game, right? At most clubs. And when I first started, I would see Ronnie Moore from Rotherham at Stockport on a Monday night, or at Tranmere, or at Rochdale, places like that. And I see Ronnie quite regularly, and I'd see David Moyes and Alan Irvine and Jimmy Lumsden from Preston before they got the Everton job, and I'd see Dario from Crewe, and I'd see loads of different managers and coaches. And once they've seen you 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, and they've seen you, and you have a cup of tea with them, then they start, all right, how are you? Where did you go Saturday? What was the left back like at Lincoln? And what's he like at Rochdale? And have you seen him at Workington? Blah, blah, blah. And you start to build that network up. And I bumped into Alan Irvine at Man City, Sheffield United the other day. Saturday, Sunday, whenever it were. Still talk about getting off your backside and going looking for players. Because I'm a firm believer you can look at the computer all day, but until you see players at coalface and you see what they like, and you see what they like when they're 2-0 down or 1-0 up, or got a yellow card, or got hooked off, or had a roasting from the dugout, you don't find out about players until you see them with your eyes.
So I suppose, like you say, you're building that network.
Yeah.
Do you then end up thinking, well, a club I'm working for aren't going to take on that player, so but I really like the look of that player. You end up kind of offering your recommendations out.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Your job is to go out. First of all, you work closely with the manager. And I'm always of the opinion that the manager is the most important man in the football club. I know we've got fancy titles nowadays of elite technical this and lead something else and something else. The manager picks the players. The manager coaches the players generally. The manager carries the can if the results aren't right. The manager should be deciding who we're signing. All right, he takes information off scouts and coaches and things like that. But especially in the last probably 7 or 8 years, I realised through experience, you get close to the manager, right? So I knew what Sean were looking for at Burnley. I know what type of player Neil wanted. I know what type of players Paul Warne wants now at Derby. And you just have discussions about players all the time. We did it yesterday. I was in yesterday, and we're talking about, because the transfer window's on, which players have we seen in the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years? Are they available? Can we get them? Can we afford them? Do they want to come? Do they fit into what we do? Do they fit into the way we play? Will they be good in the dressing room? Because certainly Sean, Neil and Paul, at the last 3 clubs I've been at, would lose 10% ability for the right character in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Recommendations, I've put some people in who I thought, well, why aren't you signing him? And then they've gone on to be really outstanding signings at other clubs. I've hammered the drum for other people, and they've been absolute failures. Can't get them all right. It's impossible to get them all right. It's impossible. Anybody who tells you to get them all right.
Forget those ones. Forget those ones that you got it a bit wrong. Remember the ones? Are the players you remember being really, really excited about when you first saw them?
There was quite a few in non-league when I first started, because when I was at Crewe, we used to be looking for non-league players. Even though we were in the Championship, they produced their own players and boost the squad with signings that they could afford, but basically looking for some young players who they could polish and sell, which is the way Crewe have operated for the last 30, 40 years. There was a boy called Tom Pope, who we took from Congleton Town for something like 12 balls and 8 tracksuits, and he went on and had a good career and scored in lower league football.
Oh yeah, what a beast of a player he's been.
Yeah, we took Luke Varney from a team called Quorn in Leicestershire, and we sold him to Charlton for £2 million. We sold. I signed a lad at Macclesfield called Tyrone Barnett from Hensford United. we couldn't actually afford him. He actually dropped in wages to go pro because he had a full-time job and played for Hensford. And we got him to come to Macclesfield. We sold him to Crawley for 150 grand, and then he went on for £1 million to Peterborough and things like that. So when I look at signings, I never put it down to me. I've always worked as head of or part of a recruitment team. So it's not one person who gets it right, one gets it wrong. We all work together. We all work together. Yeah, there's been one or two I've dropped clangers on, no doubt. Missed out on. I always wanted Fulham to take Dean Ashton when he first got into the Crew team. I wanted him to take Tim Cahill from Millwall. I wanted him to take Stephen Reid from Millwall when Stephen first burst onto the scene at Millwall. But if they sign people like Malbranck and Van der Sar and Sahar and people like that, can't really argue, can you?
I suppose not. No, and you've worked with a bunch of really great clubs, like Fulham, like I said, Crewe, Burton, Swansea, Doncaster, Burnley, Cardiff, Blackburn. It's like say now at Derby.
I didn't always want to leave them clubs.
Is it quite a? I was going to mention, is it quite a precarious role sometimes, because it's about your relationship sometimes, like you mentioned, with managers and getting to know what those managers want, and then they can have one manager in on Monday and another one in on Tuesday,
Friday.
And there can be one in completely different character, wanting a completely different type of player. Do you have to adapt quite quickly when that change is happening quite a lot?
Well, you either have to adapt or you leave. And that's why the clubs are in such a mess sometimes, I think, because they chop and change that often and too quickly, that nobody can put plans in place, can they? Like having 6 months at it or 15 games is what's happened this week is impossible. It's an impossibility. They've all been different. They've all been different, the clubs that I've worked at. All the managers have been different in a roundabout way. I know, as mentioned before, the last 3 or 4 managers are all massive on character. Tony Mowbray at Blackburn loved his footballing, skillful players with good character. Neil liked people who could get about the pitch and compete and get crosses in and score goals. He was a fan, really, Neil. He's a fan.
Yeah.
Hell of a manager, hell of a motivator, hell of a man manager. But basically, he's a fan who wants good football in front of him. Different players all the time. Paul's the same at Derby. Wants his players who can get around the pitch, be strong, competitive, but can play when need to play. So it's always been challenging, so to say, at different clubs. Some clubs that we've had no money. We had no money at Macclesfield. There was very little at Burton. Some clubs we were able to spend money at Cardiff, like when we won we were runners up in the Championship to get in the Premiership. So we were able to. There's more money, therefore bigger salaries, better players. So you've always got to adapt somewhere. Precarious, yeah, it is, because clubs change hands. Clubs are changing hands quite often. Clubs change HR teams and chief executives who's making decisions on people's futures nowadays more than ever. So yeah, it's always been precarious. Always been precarious. You just have to hope that you've done enough to warrant another opportunity somewhere.
Like when I've talked to Paul Cook ages ago now, but when he first went into Ipswich, he talked about how there was no recruitment room at all when he went in. Does that need to be? I mean, it seems like an obvious thing that a recruitment room should be kind of a consistent at a football club, and not something that's ripped up and torn apart every now and then.
No,
is it getting better in that regards, or is it still as?
It is. It is. I mean, the recruitment rooms now are full of computers, full of video analysis, full of televisions on wall, looking at players all week long. Let's say they're all. I think they're all a little bit different. I mean, the only thing Neil wanted to know when I'd been to see some players is, does he go in my team? Does he make my team better? That's all he wanted to know. Right. I'd been looking at some players 6 months before we signed them, 12 months before we signed them. I knew about them 18 months or 24 months before we signed them. But we were unable to sign them because we didn't have the finance, or we weren't at the level that they could play at. So, yeah, it throws problems up. And it's more difficult to sign players today because there's more layers to get through now to sign a player. Agents, players, clubs, chief execs, finance, sell-ons, buyout clauses, bonuses. It took me 20 minutes to sign for Chesterfield. I think it can take 2 weeks to sign a player now.
I got to say, you don't want an agent like Andy Dallas's sending him around every club in the country. It seemed at the time of that one.
We have to put up with that quite a bit, to be fair.
I imagine you do. I imagine you've had some interesting dealings with agents.
Yeah, not for today, that one. Not for today.
We'll leave that one. So looking back, then we're kind of getting near the end. But looking back at your career, then, so you've obviously had a great opportunity to play for your hometown club, which is great. And then you've had that good kind of non-league career and a bit of management, and then this huge kind of scouting role. You must look back quite proud on how it's kind of gone. You've managed to stay in the game and kind of still be doing this.
Yeah,
now on a weekly.
Well, I think like when you're growing up, we all want to play football. We all want to be footballers, don't you? And we all want to play for Manchester United, Liverpool, or Arsenal. I don't think we ever thought about playing for Halifax or Chesterfield or Kettering in town. But you find your level, don't you? In all honesty, you've got to be realistic. You find your level. I think, my favourite thing is obviously making my debut for my hometown club after watching them and going to support them and things like that. I was proud as punch to do that. Did I get to the levels I wanted to? No. Playing at the levels? No, I didn't. Did I coach at the levels I wanted to? No. Did I manage at the levels I wanted to? No. Scouting, like I've worked at some real good clubs. So yeah, I'm quite happy with what I've done. I'm 66. I don't want to retire. I want to keep going. I enjoy going to Morecambe versus Harrogate last week. I enjoy going to Accrington versus Walsall the week before. If you don't enjoy it and love what you're doing, you may as well pack it anyway.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So you're now at Derby. Obviously, local Chesterfield. Still come to quite a lot of Chesterfield matches as well.
I've not been to as many. I've been to 2 this season, to be fair, but that weren't scouting. That was just because I want to go and watch and see how we're doing. And we actually played. I think we played Chesterfield in pre-season, didn't we? We played a pre-season game at the start of the season. Yeah, so I've been to 2 league games this season, and I saw us at Altrincham because I live in Stockport now, so it's only like 5 miles down the road from where I am. I do myself and John. I would do like to get to as many games as we can, but it's not always possible. We've been out at other games.
Yeah.
Grigg, Naylor, Colclough, who I work with at Crewe, to be fair. Good players in League One, League Two. So there's no wonder they're doing well, but let's hope we just get it done this season and get back up and get back into the league.